Mathematics, Ordinary Level, Paper 2, 2023, Part 4. Let's start with question number 11. The diagram shows the sketch graph of fx equals negative x squared minus 2x plus 8 and gx equals mx plus q. Graph f has an x-intercept at A and B, 2 and 0. It's always good if you see information, write it in. 2 and 0, that's missing. And a turning point at C. The straight line G passes through A and C and cuts the y-axis at E. Okay, write down the coordinates of the y-intercept of F. Now, where will I find this in the y equals mx plus c mathematics textbooks? I will find this in the part 1, in chapter 6, and it's graphs of quadratic functions. Okay, in that, so I'll give you further on pages as we move along. So write down the coordinate of the f. So what is my function f? So let's just write it down again. And it's negative x squared minus 2x plus 8. Now I can already see it because it's the value without an x. It's the c value. So I already know it's 0 and 8. But if you want, and you want to say, when it cuts the y-axis, you make x is equal to 0. So if I want to see, then I say y, and I put a 0 there, and I put a 0 and plus 8, and then I will come to that 8. Okay, and that I will get 1 mark. I'll go now to the report. Show the coordinates of the turning point C, R. Now, where will I find that in my textbooks? You will find that on page 249. So on page 249, and that is where they say when you express ax squared plus bx plus c in the form ax plus b squared plus q. Okay, now let's do it. Now the first important thing is I'm just going to take the expression part. So negative x squared minus 2x plus 8. Now the biggest problem is this negative. Do you see? I cannot do completing of the square because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do completing of the square of an expression. So I must take out that negative. And if I take it out, I'm going to change the signs inside. Okay, so that changed to a positive, that changed to a negative. Then I'm going to add, and I'm just going to make this another color. I take this and I divide 2 and I square. And what I do here, I do exactly the same. So whatever I add, I must subtract due to the fact that it's an expression. If it's an equation, I add on both sides. Now, I'm going to say negative, and I keep, and bracket, and x, it's this, the square root, this, it's 1, this sign, plus 1, square, and it's minus 8, minus 1, and I close. So it's negative x plus 1 square minus 9. So it's negative x plus 1 squared, and a negative times a negative is positive 9. And don't forget to say the turning point is coming from this. This sign changed, so it becomes a negative. This stays the same, a 9. And that is what they asked you there. So you don't start with it, but you must end with their answer. Do you see that? Okay. I'll go now, and then the last one. Okay. Write down the coordinates of A. Now, actually, there's two ways of doing it. The one way, I'm going to show you, and then I'll show you the other way. So if I want to see where it cuts the x-axis, I make y is equal to 0. So in this equation of fx there, I put 0. So I said 0 equals negative x squared minus 2x plus 8. Okay, now before I factorize, I change the signs, or I divide by a negative all the terms, or multiply, doesn't matter. Do you see how I'm changing the signs due to that fact? And now I factorize. It's in group B, so it's 8. Yes, it's subtraction, so it's 4 and 2, and this is 1, so 1 and 1. If I cross multiply, so 4 minus 2, I get that 2. And the biggest over cross product gets a positive, that sign, and this one gets a negative. So I'm ending up with x plus 4 and x minus 2. And then if I put this one equal to 0, or it's this one equal to 0, so I get that x is equal to negative 4, or x is equal to 2. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to see. Now, if I look at the sketch, I see they already gave me the 2 and 0. So the one that I'm looking for was negative 4 and 0. Okay, don't forget, it's a coordinate. So you must write there negative 4 and 0. But I want to show you also, there was another way you could have come to that negative 4, by working with the line of symmetry. Now, the turning point will always be on the line of symmetry. What does that mean? That means that if you count the units, let's just go. If you count the units to this point, okay, I rather want to take red that you can see it. Okay, it's not so accurate, maybe the drawing, but it's fine. It's the sketches is not to scale. So you will get negative, you are moving, okay, let's rather say, you get 3 units. So if the turning point, don't forget the turning point was negative 1 and 9. So meaning that is negative 1. So if you say negative 1 and you add 3, you will come to 2. That's meaning that there will also be 3 units to this side. So if you say negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, then this one will be negative 4. Okay, so you could have, that's actually maybe an easier method, working with symmetry, because a parabole, the turning point is the line of symmetry. So it will be the same to this and the same to that side. Okay, but let's go to the examination report and see what they're telling us there. Okay, so this is question number 11. So what they say here, many candidates got this answer correct. So where it cuts the y-axis. Then number B is poorly answered. Candidates should be taught that for a show or a proof question where the answer is actually given and they are required to work to that answer, they are not to start with the given fact. They must end with it. Some candidates substituted negative 1 into the quadratic function to obtain 9. This did not yield any marks, as they were supposed to first show that the x value of the turning point is negative 1 and then use that to obtain 9. Those that attempt to complete the square of the quadratic function made a mistake of dividing through by negative 1 and not factoring it out, keeping the negative outside. Hence, they ended up with a wrong turning point. Teachers should put more emphasis on completing the square, that's the method we did, of functions where the leading coefficient is not 1, but negative 1 in this case, and more especially in working with negatives. Candidates should also realize that it was not enough to only calculate the x and the y values, but that they needed to write them as coordinates. For shown or proof question, candidates should give their final answer in the same format as given in the question. So you must end with the turning point. Okay, and I think that's what, if you look here, you will see, if you take out the negative, and there you got, and then reading it from there. Okay. And then the next one, many candidates did not answer this question correctly. Candidates have used the concept of symmetry, as I showed you, or factorizing is where it cuts the x-axis, you make y0, fact the quadratic function to obtain the coordinates. Okay, but this question is still going on. So let's go back to the question paper. Okay, so in the question paper, this is the second, oh no, I think it's going back. Okay, here comes the second part of the question. So find the equation of gx by first finding the values of m and q. Give your answer in the form. Now, how will I do that? I'll tell you where you find that. It's still in part 1. And it's still going, it's going to be chapter 7. Chapter 7, and that's coordinate geometry. And it's on page 311, and you will find it example 13. That will really help you. So what will I need? I need 2 points. I need 2 points on that line. So let's go back and see what points do I have. Now, I have this point, -4 and 0, which I worked out now. And I have the turning point. Do you see? I have that turning point there. So this is the 2 points that I'm going to work, A and C. So let's just go back to that page and write it down. So what was the point A? The point A, where it cuts the x-axis, was the same as the F and the G cut at the same place. So -4 and 0. And then the turning point, the straight line also went through the turning point, -1 and 9. And now, okay, you can start doing it. Now, I like, because I know when you are stressed, you make a lot of unnecessary mistakes. So I rather do things and try to help you to avoid mistakes. So first, I will work out the gradient. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So in the place of y2, so it's 9 minus 0. x2, go for your brackets, otherwise you will make a mistake. Always substitute in brackets. You could even substitute there in brackets. So as what I usually do is I will leave out the brackets if I see it's positive values, but I will always go for if I see it's negative values. So 9 minus 0 is 9. And now this is -1, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So it's actually -1 plus 4. And what will that be? 3. And then it's 3. Okay. So I know now the value of m is 3. So I write it, y equals mx plus c. Now, I will substitute 1 point in as well as the value of m. So in the place of y, I will put 0. In the place of m, I will put 3. And in the place of x, I will put -4. And I'm looking for c. So c, it's going to be -12 plus c. And the value of c, that's going to be 12. So don't forget to write it correctly. It's going to be, okay, you can first write it as y equals 3x plus 12. But we want gx is equal to 3x plus 12. So that gx they wrote in the place of y because it's the name of that equation. Okay, where will you get all your marks? I'm going to first go back, but I think if you already came, it's counting a lot of marks. So I think if you work it out, there you 2 marks for the gradient, and then substituting in to get the value of c, and then coming to, but then also putting it in the correct format. So let's just go and see if it was something like that where the marks was given. Okay, so let's just find. So question 11D, the question was poorly answered. Many candidates also left this question unanswered. Many that attempt to answer use coordinates that are not on the straight line to calculate the gradient and also the equation of the line. No marks were given for using points that are not on the straight line. It was again worrying to see that some candidates could not recall or properly use the formula for calculating the gradient. Again, I can advise teachers to make a formula sheet, and then as you go through the book or the syllabus, and then by the end of the year, then make sure your students is knowing all the different formulas. Okay, but let's just see. There it was. So M for 1, and then for the answers, already 2 for that. Then to get that value of C, and then that to get the answer, substituting, and then for the final. Okay, let's do the final on that one. Okay. And then now they ask for the inverse. Oh, and it's just a basic, where do I find inverse in my textbooks? It's going to still be in part 1. And it's inverse functions in the same chapter 6. And you can go there to page 229. You can go and look at example 5. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to first write down the formula as I have it now here. And what is the 3 steps? The first step, in the place of gx, put a y. The second step is interchange the x and the y. Where you see a y, you make a x. And where you see a x, you make a y. And then make y the subject of the formula. And then divide 3 both sides. Okay, and then don't forget, I'm first going to write it like this. But we write it as the inverse. G minus 1x is equal to x minus 12 over 3. Don't forget to write the inverse. Okay, and the marks, they go for that first step, and then where you for that one, and then for your final one. Let's just go to the question paper and see, or the report, and see if it was done that way. Okay, so basically, let's just read what they say. There was a fairly good attempt by candidates to answer this question. Even candidates that seemingly didn't know what to do in part D, they used the given this and correctly found the inverse of those variables. They were awarded marks. So you got marks, even if you had the previous one incorrect. Some candidates lost 1 mark for writing the inverse in terms of y and still writing as g instead of this. So you must end with g minus 1, indicating the inverse. Okay, and basically that's where you got your marks. Okay, let's do the next question. Question number 12. Okay, so first we're going to see where we find it in the textbook. So let's just make it a bit bigger that you can see a little bit better. Okay, there it is. Okay, so it's an aeroplane was due to take off from Hosea Kotaku Airport in Windhoek at 1842, but it was 30 minutes late. So what is this? This looks like time. So where do I find it? It will be in part 2, and it's chapter 10. And it's time, and where do you find it? Page 496. Okay, so during the flight, thanks to a tailwind, the plane made up the time and in fact landed 60 minutes earlier than its scheduled arrival time at 00.05. Assume the journey did not cross any time zone, okay, because then time can change. Work out the exact time the aeroplane took off. So let's just find the time first. It was 1842. Okay, but remember, it was 30 minutes late, so I must add 30 minutes. Then I get 18. I'm first going to add, so I'm going to get 77, but that's not time on a clock. It cannot be more than 60. So I take 60 out, so it's going to become 90, and if I subtract 16, I'm going to get 17. So it's 1917. Okay, that's when it took off. Now finding the landing time. So it catch up because aeroplanes can catch up. So it was then the 0. Okay, so that was just 1 mark. Then it was the 0 point, oh, like my color. 0.05. And now I'm going to 16. I'm going to subtract the 16. Okay. So I want to show you how I'm going to do this. So I'm subtracting the 16. But I think it's better that you rather work with the 24 hour. Because then it's easier to subtract that 16. Okay. So basically what we're going to do is we see it cannot go from 5. So we take 23 and we add that 60. So we have 23, 65, and now we can subtract the 16. Do you see that? Okay, and if we subtract the 16, we get 49 and 23. Okay, it's not duration, it's time on a clock. So it's 23, 49, or you can say 11:49, but then you must put the PM. Then it's on the 12-hour clock. Okay, again, just 1 mark. This is also coming from primary school. And then now we come to duration. Calculate the duration of the whole journey in hours and minutes. But now you must work with your 2 answers. So it was 23:49 when it landed. But it took off at 1917. And this was actually very nice. Look how nice it subtracts. So it gets 32 minutes. And if it subtracts 4 hours. So the journey was 4 hours and 32 minutes. So and I think they gave you 1 for the hour and 1 for 32. But let's check and make sure. So basically, this is now question number 12. Okay. Now, I think we must go first back. Okay. It seems that some candidates were not taught on how to calculate time on their calculators. A lot of manual calculations could be seen on their papers. Although this might be good to be able to do some mental calculations, many candidates ended up making mistakes and got wrong answers. Care should be taken to differentiate time written in 24-hour format from the 12-hour format. This question was given in 24-hour format and candidates' answer were expected to be in the same format. So they didn't want the 12. Okay. Some gave their answers in 12-hour format without indicating the PM. Such answers were not marked correct. If you give the PM, yes. And then this question was well answered by candidates. Some that lost marks was due to writing time as a duration. Okay, that was incorrect then. So basically, can I just show you here? So it was that 1917, okay, and they accepted that also. So if you went to the 12-hour. And then seemingly some candidates failed to understand the stem of the question, perhaps due to a lot of wording in the stem. Some candidates gave their arrival time that is earlier than the takeoff time. Such candidates seems to have not read the question with comprehension, understanding, and also did not realize that their time did not make sense. So they wanted actually this one, but they accepted also this one. And then there was a good attempt to answer this part question. Many candidates scored at least 1 mark. Candidates realized well that they had to subtract their answers. So they follow through. So that meaning even if you had this incorrect, they will work with your incorrect. And you can still score 2 full marks even if your answer differs from this one. Okay, if you subtracted correctly. All these videos refer to the y equals mx+c textbooks, the number 1 mathematics textbook used in Namibian schools. For more information on these textbooks, visit the Straight Line Publishing website. All y equals mx plus c to success textbooks are available in the NEED catalogue of the Ministry of Education. Schools can order these using their yearly budget for textbooks, with the process typically starting mid-year. Make sure your learners have a copy of the y equals mx plus c mathematics textbook used by the top schools in Namibia in front of them in 2025. A final point. If you are in the position, I want to encourage you to buy your own personal copy of the y equals mx plus c mathematics textbook. These textbooks are available at the following bookshops. Remember, success in mathematics comes from hard work, perseverance, and the courage to face challenges head on. Good luck with your final 2024 examination.